You ever noticed that the afternoon is the hardest part of your day? Even on the days when you're eating well, you made good choices, you had something healthy, and yet by 3 p.m. something drops. The energy thins out. A craving appears from nowhere. Another coffee starts to sound very tempting. If that sounds familiar, stay with me, because today that's exactly what we are looking at. Some patterns are easy to miss until you start connecting the dots. Hello and welcome back to Rooted in the Seasons, where ancient wisdom meets modern life with a strong cup of tea and practical tools for real busy women. I'm Katya Patel, Ayurvedic diet and lifestyle educator, yoga teacher, and a teacher mentor. Today I want to explore one of those patterns. Something that might feel very familiar once you hear it. So just stay here with me for a moment. So you eat reasonably well. You make considered choices. You pay attention to what goes on your plate. And yet something still feels off. Your energy dips in the afternoon. Cravings arrive later in the day. Some meals leave you feeling strangely unsatisfied. Digestion feels unpredictable. Fine some days, sluggish on others. When this happens, most of us look at what we are eating. But here's what I want to offer you today. And this is something I come back to again and again with clients. The missing piece is often not the food itself. It sits in the rhythm around the meals. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Now, here's the interesting thing. Digestion is not simply a response to eating. It is also a preparation for eating. Around regular meal times, the body begins to ready itself. Digestive enzymes increase, stomach acid rise, hunger hormones shift. The nervous system moves into a state of readiness. It prepares to receive nourishment. This is something Ayurveda has understood for thousands of years, that the body works rhythmically and that digestion works better when it can anticipate what's coming. What's interesting is, though, that modern research now mirrors this. Circadian rhythm science is showing us that digestion, metabolism, hormones, and the energy regulation all following rhythmic patterns throughout the day. When meals happen at very different times each day, that preparation is interrupted. Some of that readiness is lost. And the result? It can feel like bloating, heaviness after eating, irregular appetite, persistent cravings, that afternoon fatigue we were talking about at the very start. This isn't traumatic. It is just persistent, and it quietly shapes the whole day. Let me pause here for a moment, because this is where things start to connect. I want to ask you something. What does your lunch actually look like? For many of the women I work with, women who are already eating thoughtfully, lunch has become lighter, smaller, quicker, often lower in grounding nourishment. And usually it is because there is work to get back to, or because a heavier meal feels like it might slow the afternoon down. But here's what tends to happen instead. By mid-afternoon, the body starts searching for energy again. A craving for something sweet appears. Focus thins. Another coffee suddenly sounds like the answer. This is not overeating. This is undereating earlier in the day. Meals that contain enough substance, like properly cooked grains, legumes, root vegetables, a balance of tastes, tend to create steadier energy well into the afternoon. And again, Ayurveda recognized long ago that the sweet taste, naturally present in many whole foods, creates stability and a sense of being genuinely nourished. Not sweet as in sugar, sweet as in grounding, satisfying, sustaining. When lunch is kept light, the body compensates later. This shows up as evening snacking, stronger hunger after dinner, or that familiar feeling of being simultaneously tired and still wanting something. This brings us to something I want to share with you, because sometimes a real story lands more clearly than any principle. One of my back to rhythm students, I'll call her Rupi, was keeping a food journal as part of our work together. And what it showed almost every single day was an afternoon snack, mostly crisps, a reliable fixture. Now, we didn't work on snacking. That was never the focus. What we changed was one thing. Lunch became a proper sit-down meal, warm, substantial, enough to genuinely carry her through the afternoon. By the time we spoke again, the crisps had stopped. And it didn't happen because she had worked on it, not because she had used willpower or made a decision to stop. She just no longer needed them. The appetite had settled because of the meal before it finally had. And here's the part I find quite remarkable. She also lost weight over that period. That was never the goal either. She was not trying to lose weight. The body simply regulated itself when the rhythm was there. This is not about adding more. It never is. The body needs steadiness. And sometimes steadiness begins with something as simple as a proper lunch at irregular times. Now, we don't all lose our eating rhythm at the in the same way. And this is where I find Ayurveda truly helpful, because it recognizes that different constitutions tend to drift towards different patterns. If you lean towards Vata, you might recognize that you forget meals entirely. You graze throughout the day. You eat while distracted, or replace proper meals with something small and quick. This feels manageable in the moment, but over time, it unsettles both digestion and the nervous system. Regular meals often help Vata feel calmer, more grounded than they expect, because the body finally has something steady to land on. If you lean towards Pitta, you usually know when you're hungry, but you delay it because there's one more thing to finish first. I recognize this pattern strongly in myself. The result tends to be impatience or irritability even, stronger hunger later in the day, and that wired but depleted feeling in the evening. The body starts compensating for what it didn't receive when it needed it most. And if you lean towards Kapha, you naturally gravitate towards routine, which helps. Kapha can often tolerate longer gaps between meals more easily. But even here, consistency still matters. Digestion benefits from rhythm regardless of your constitution. So the question worth sitting with is, which pattern feels most like yours? When nourishment becomes predictable, the body responds differently. Energy tends to feel steadier across the day. Cravings reduce, not because you are eating more, but because the body is no longer compensating for gaps. The nervous system settles more easily. Digestion becomes more efficient. And here's something important. Digestive strength is naturally higher around midday than in the morning or in the evening. A more substantial lunch, therefore, and lighter meals at either end of the day works with the body's own rhythm rather than against it. This is one reason why 3 regular meals with enough substance within them and genuine space between them often changes how a woman feels across the day, more than adjusting individual food choices, adding supplements, or trying to manage the afternoon slump directly. Your body is communicating, and often what it's asking for is something very basic: rhythm, warmth, and enough. So, if something in this episode felt familiar, I don't want to leave you with a long list, because you don't need another thing to think about. What I'd suggest instead is start with one anchor. Choose one thing that feels genuinely possible and place it in your day with some consistency. It might be a regular lunchtime, a warm sit-down meal, in the middle of the day, substantial enough to carry you into the afternoon. Or a short walk after eating, even 5 or 10 minutes. Small shifts placed in the right way often lead to the biggest change because they are consistent and the body responds to repetition. And once it has something steady to work with, it often does the rest by itself. If today's episode has resonated and you're thinking, this sounds right, but I struggle to actually build it in, that's exactly why I created my live workshop, When Rest Isn't Enough, Rebuild Your Daily Rhythm. It's a space where we look at the whole shape of the day. Not just food, but when energy lands, where it drains, and how small anchors of rhythm create something generally more steady. You don't have to figure this out on your own. And if food and digestion feel like a specific place to start, Cook to Feel Steady is a 5-day reset built around simple, nourishing meals at consistent times. Nothing complicated, just steadiness with food. You'll find the links to both in the show notes. So if you remember nothing else from today, remember this. The body settles when nourishment becomes more predictable. And that predictability often begins somewhere surprisingly simple. A regular lunchtime, a warm meal, enough on the plate to gently carry you through. From there, things begin to settle. Thank you so much for listening to Rooted in the Seasons. If you enjoyed this episode, you can subscribe or follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. That way, new episodes land automatically for you. And if you like support between the episodes, you can download my free guide, 5 Daily Ayurvedic Shifts to Feel Like Yourself Again, and join my Sunday Read newsletter. You'll find also these links in the show notes. And if something in today's episode resonated, feel free to contact me either on Substack or, even better, drop me an email. I always read and answer. Until next time, stay rooted in the season. Bye-bye.